All right, Tex, you got to admit, at the surface level, looks a little different. What in the world happened to make you present this legislation and go for outlawing noon kickoffs except for the Michigan game?
Right. So just to add a little bit of parameters to the legislation, this would only impact if it's within the state of Ohio and it's two top 10 teams facing off against each other. I'm not looking to ban a noon kickoff if the Buckeyes are playing Nebraska or anything like that. Just for those big marquee games, like the Ohio State-Texas game, we got a playoff rematch coming up to open up the season at Ohio Stadium. And seeing that that's going to be a noon kickoff, I think, puts us at a competitive disadvantage. The atmosphere in a noon game never quite matches up to what goes on at the Shoe under the lights. I went to the Tennessee playoff game, and that was one of the best football atmospheres I've ever experienced. And I think that our fan base, by and large, is fed up. We've seen a lot of discourse about this on social media and just thought, we got to put a little bit more pressure on Fox to hopefully change this and make sure we're not kicking off at noon in that top 5 matchup against Texas.
Talking to Boardman, Ohio Representative Tex Fisher here on the ride home on 103.9 The Maverick. And I guess I did a little homework here, Tex. There is some precedence for this in a couple of other schools.
Yeah, Ohio State University, it's a public university in Ohio. This is all government property. I don't think this is going anywhere. It is somewhat in the purview of the state of Ohio to regulate these things. Obviously, the Buckeyes are a huge economic driver in Columbus, and I think there's a really strong case to be made that the businesses in and around the stadium on these sorts of games will actually have a lot more sales. They're going to get a lot of people in and out of their doors, and it's going to be much better for the economy when you have this type of an atmosphere that happens at a night game rather than first thing in the morning. You got a lot of students that are just trying to get into the stadium to make it in time for kickoff. I think there are a lot of benefits to having these games kick off later in the day.
So you kind of may have alluded to it in your response to me. Do you think there's any real chance this bill gets footing?
No, I don't think there's any chance this bill gets footing in the legislative process. This is really to start the conversation and just to stir up a little bit more public pressure on Fox and the Big Ten to hopefully change this. So there's a lot this would interfere with contracts that are already established that have been signed under legal parameters. But realistically, this is about starting a conversation and ramping up public pressure. I don't think this legislative effort is going to get very far. We've got a lot of other issues we can worry about, but I do think this has been certainly helpful in putting a little bit more public pressure on Fox and stirring up a pretty strong conversation.
Well, Tex, thank you so much for your time. I know I and many others are going to be following it closely for the next step.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Have a good weekend.
You too.